Hello, my name is Matt Katz. I'm a reporter here at WNYC, and welcome to Metropolis, World Refugee Day. Tomorrow is World Refugee Day, and so today we're going from New York to Europe to the Middle East to Africa to shed some light on the experiences of those people throughout the world who have been forcibly displaced from their homes, separated from their families, and are now contending with a new threat, the COVID-19 pandemic, which has made the ever-challenging life of a refugee all that more difficult. So first up, I'll be discussing the new UN Refugee Agency's Global Trends Report with the UN High Commissioner for Refugees Director in New York. This report on the last year of forced displacement reveals some very stark numbers. 79.5 million people were displaced around the globe. That's a full 1% of the global population on the move, not by choice. And about 40% of those displaced are children. Just a tiny fraction of these millions have been able to resettle in their homeland or abroad. Today, we're going to talk to refugees themselves as well to get a sense of the human stories behind these big numbers. And we'll culminate all of this with a beautiful performance and interview with Asalarah and the Nubatones. I do want to take a moment to thank the MetLife Foundation for their support of this program and series. And now I'd like to welcome the UNHCR Director in New York, Ruvendrini Menikdiwela, who will offer the first glimpses from the brand new UN Refugee Agency Global Trends Report. Hi, Ruven. Thanks for taking the time, and a good World Refugee Day welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thanks a lot for inviting me to this program. And you actually said pretty much a lot of what I wanted to say about the Global Trends Report. We are talking numbers here, of course. It's 1% of the entire population of this planet is forcibly displaced. That's 1 in every 97 people. That put together would be the 20th largest country. 34 million of them, these displaced are children. They're under the age of 18. 86% of these refugees, the ones who have actually left the country and gone into another country because of persecution or conflict, are living in developing countries, not in the first world. And we basically have more than, the vast majority of these refugees also living in urban and semi-urban areas, not in settlements or camps, as is widely perceived to be the case. I know these are just numbers, and normally when I speak in any public forum, my colleagues go like, just stop talking statistics because there's nothing as dry and boring as numbers. But the fact is, Matt, behind every single digit of these statistics, there's a human face, there's an individual tragedy. And I think that's really what we'd want everybody to remember at least once a year. We would actually like them to remember this throughout the year, but at least on every 20th of June, we want them to take a moment and think, there, but for the grace of something, go I. So.
And in your new role, and this is what we're doing, as you suggested, this is why we're taking this moment to think about these numbers and to think about these stories behind the numbers. And so in your new role in New York, what are you doing to address this issue? What does this job entail? I know you just are getting on your feet here from your last assignment in Pakistan. Tell us about what your days are like working on this issue.
For us here, our main job, and it could not be more different from my previous job in Pakistan, where I was literally managing an operation that was looking after 1.4 million Afghan refugees. Here, it's all about talking to member states, many of whom are our major donors, including the United States, or talking to other partners in the UN and also in the private sector, in the civil society, NGOs, talking to them about refugees, making them understand what UNHCR is doing, not just in New York, because frankly, New York is the least important of our locations in terms of what we're doing. It's really the deep field. It's where the refugees are. It's where most of our staff are. It's where they are really working to help the refugees, talking to the governments of host countries every day, talking to them about accepting refugees in their systems. So for us, the important thing is that the member states here and our partner agencies are aware of the refugees, of the situation that they're facing, and what needs to be done for them. So again, it's very much about raising not just awareness, but also mobilizing resources to help these refugees at the end of the day. And of course, the pandemic has not done anything to improve the situation of the refugees, as you can imagine.
I'm curious about what you're hearing from those countries, because last year, 317,000 refugees were able to return to their country of origin, and then 107,000 were resettled to third countries. But this is a drop in the bucket. These are very small numbers compared to the overall need. The United States resettled just 27,500 refugees in 2019. That's the lowest since our refugee resettlement program began 40 years ago. So are you finding that countries' foreign policies are becoming more hostile to refugees, or at least more ambivalent to the cause? Is that the dynamic that you're encountering?
Frankly, I think because I arrived in New York really before the pandemic, at least hard on the heels of the pandemic, for me, the conversation with member states, including the donors, including those who receive refugees on resettlement, or the host governments that have been playing host to these refugees sometimes for over 40 years, as is the case in some countries, there has been an incredible generosity towards the refugees. So I have to say, both in terms of funding, and we issued a global appeal for the COVID response, which amounted to some 745 million. And we have already received over 400 million from governments, principally from governments. So we've also received some amounts from the private sector as well. And that's, I think, an indication of the fact that governments are aware of what this crisis is all about, the fact that it's true, as the Secretary General once said, the virus does not discriminate, but its impact does. And refugees and other forcibly displaced people really have been disproportionately impacted by the virus. Yeah. And the governments are really aware of it, and they have been providing us with the funding that we require. We are still a way away from getting that complete 745 million that we require, but already over 400 million is not bad. And this is really something I do want to highlight, that governments have been generous with the funding, but we are concerned that after the immediate impact of this virus is over, that, in the medium and long term, that our funding may obviously be impacted by the pandemic. Yeah. Because, of course, many of these donor governments, as you can imagine, are also grappling with economic challenges in their own countries because they have been quite severely affected by the pandemic, including the United States, of course. So,
I was going to say that the need is growing because of the pandemic, but also because the numbers are growing.
Absolutely.
The 79.5 million displaced people last year compared to 70.8 million the year before. It's a big jump. What do you attribute the huge increase in the number of displaced people just from 2018 to 2019?
Well, we have seen a lot of displacement in regions like the Sahel. That's really been concerning. And then, of course, there's also the Venezuela situation where we have approximately 5 million Venezuelans outside of Venezuela. So these have all been factored in and pretty much constitute the 11 million newly displaced that we have now registered in 2019, as opposed to, as you said, the previous trends report where we registered considerably less. So for us, it's essentially, I think, those two situations that have really generated the most amount of displacement at this point in time.
How is the refugee situation affected in other ways by COVID? I think of the closed borders and the fact that certain countries like the US have restricted asylum seekers from coming in. What are some of the other dynamics that are related to the pandemic that you're seeing in terms of the migration of displaced people?
I think the pandemic has just worsened the situation of the refugees and the other displaced as well. So whether you're a refugee seeking hospital bed or medical treatment because you have the virus and you're being told, no, we cannot treat you, we will not treat you because you're a refugee, or whether it's you were a day laborer in a field somewhere and now you're being told by your employer that there's no longer a job available for you. So there that's your income, but also the income that's supporting 5 members of your family. So you lost that. That means you're pretty much going to lose a roof over your head, and you're not going to know where your next meal is coming from. Or it could be a stranger in the street basically saying, you're a refugee, go away because we think you're a carrier of the virus. So it's all that. It's really the socioeconomic impact of it. It's hate speech, stigmatization. It's lack of access to public health services. It's children of refugees being told you can't go to school because you're a refugee and we don't know whether you're infected or not. So it really impacts on their lives in so many different ways, and that it's really amounting to catastrophic proportions now.
Your agency has a goal of resettling 3 million people by 2028. What needs to happen for you to reach that goal?
I think the developed countries definitely need to step up to the plate, and many of them are. We have lots of discussions going on with the European countries, with also non-traditionally resettlement countries, including on the African continent or in the Americas, who are basically indicating a willingness to accept refugees on resettlement. So that's a positive side that's happening, which is also why we've set this target, and we hope we will achieve it. But we also have to remember, though, that resettlement accounts for less than 1% of the solution for refugees. The biggest solution, the preferred one, is voluntary repatriation. And that's really, the preferred solution for most of the refugees themselves, which is why 86% of them prefer to go to neighboring countries rather than take a boat or a plane and go further afield, because they really have this hope that at the end of the day, when the conflict ceases, when the persecution ceases, that they can actually cross the border and go back home. And that's, again, what we're really working towards. It's conflict resolution, it's peace building, it's preventing these kinds of causes that, prompt these refugees to flee.
We know there are plenty of reasons to be pessimistic about this situation right now. Before I let you go, can you give us a reason to be optimistic on this World Refugee Day? Looks like we have lost Reuven right before my last question. We will try to get her back. In the meantime, we can thank her for joining us. Really appreciate it. That was amazing to hear. In case you're just tuning in, this is Macropolis World Refugee Day, and I'm Matt Katz. I report on refugee and immigrant issues here at WNYC. We just spoke with the UNHCR Director in New York, Ruvendrini Menikdiwela, and next we'll be talking to refugee activists from around the world. And at the end of this hour, we'll have a musical performance from Asalarah and the Nubatones, and talk to her about the state of forced displacement in these unprecedented times. If you want to join this conversation, drop a comment in the feed, and we'll do our best to bring it up. Feel free to share some optimism in those comments. My last question before we lost Reuven was for reasons that we can be optimistic on this World Refugee Day. So we'll take doses of your optimism as well. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining us. And we are now, I have one more thing to say before I bring on our next guest. We are thrilled to be able to bring these shows to our audiences through this pandemic. But here's the thing about what we're doing here, though. It costs money. The Green Space and New York Public Radio are a nonprofit organization that relies on support from our viewers and listeners to keep this content coming to you. So if you are in a position to make a donation today, if you appreciate this programming on our air at the Green Space, we'll be so appreciative. We've made it very easy for you. Just go get on the texting app on your phone, text the word live to 70101. That's LIVE to 70101. We'll text you right back with a form where you can make a contribution. On behalf of all of us at the Green Space, thank you for your support of this work. We really, really appreciate it. And now I am excited to introduce our next panelists. Joining us from Dubai, we have Hala Haj Taleb from Vienna, Asif Safjuri, and last but not least from Kakuma, Kenya, we have Nhial Deng. Welcome, everyone. This is so cool to connect with all of you guys from all over the globe like this. We've been talking about the sheer extent of displacement around the world in this hour, but behind these stats are real people with real lives. And as representatives from some of the most impacted regions, South Sudan, Afghanistan, and Syria, I wanted to start by asking you guys about what brought you each to this moment. I'm going to start with Nhial, so you can unmute yourself over there in Kenya. Nhial, you were displaced from South Sudan, and now you're reaching us from a refugee camp in Kenya. Tell us where you are exactly, and then share a bit about your journey. How did you end up where you are?
Hi, my name is Nhial Deng. I live in Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya. So I came to Kakuma in 2010 when our village was attacked by armed militias. And I felt like I've seen things that young people like myself couldn't have seen. I've seen people dying in front of me. I've seen houses burning. And then there was no place to be called home again. So we had to flee. And so many people were running away. And then we found our way to Kakuma refugee camp.
Wow. Are you there with an extended number of relatives? Who do you stay with?
I came alone. So when I arrived, I moved into the foster family, and then now I'm living with a number of friends.
Wow. What are your concerns about the world at the moment when it comes to the state of refugees? Nhial.
I'm very concerned, but optimistic at the same time, because I've seen that young people like myself across the world are on the front line to make sure we are all safe. And I think this is the message that we have been trying to put across, that we have more to offer when given a chance. So we don't just ask for an opportunity to survive, but we also want an opportunity to thrive. And that means giving us opportunities that will help us get closer to our dreams.
Wonderful. Asif, you're from Afghanistan, and you're now joining us from Vienna, Austria, where you live. I shared a statistic earlier that a full 40% of displaced people around the world right now are children. And you were one of those children, right? Migrating on your own to find safety. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience?
Sure, Matt. I was a child. I can remember when my family and we fled to Pakistan during the war in Afghanistan. So, and then at the same time, it was really difficult also in Pakistan. So after some years, we tried back in Afghanistan. But unfortunately, the security situation is still and was not at that time not that good. So I fled and came to Austria, to Vienna, to be secure here.
How long was that journey, Asif? How many from beginning to end?
So when I fled Afghanistan, so I came through Iran, Turkey, Greece, and Italy to here. It took me about 3 months. And
you were on your own for the bulk of that journey?
I was on my own. I came as a child, well, as a young person, when I was 14. So I could, fortunately, I could continue my education here and also do my bachelor's. Just 3% of the refugees have access to the higher education, which is not a lot, which is really not a lot. The systems, the education system in different parts of the world, it's unfortunately not inclusive. And I was lucky to be able to do the university here. And I wish the systems in other countries were more adaptive to refugees also.
Where as a 14-year-old did you find both the inner strength and then the mental strength to be able to cross borders to find safety as a 14-year-old? Where does a young refugee find that fortitude?
The thing is, Matt, when you are in danger, human being is able to do things that you would maybe not consider you could do it. And when you're in safety, then you think how you can help the others. And when I reached here, so everyone, let's say, if you're not a refugee, if you migrate, even if you're as a tourist in a new country, you face lots of problems. And the thing was, when I came here, then I faced problems from learning language to learning to getting to the system to learn how the things work. And then we started our association to help also other young refugees who come to Austria, so that they do not have to go through the difficulties we went through.
Hala, you and your family fled Aleppo, Syria in 2015, and now you're a journalism student at the American University in Dubai. Can you tell me a little bit about your journey?
Sure. So before the war started in Syria, I was just like anyone else in the world, having a normal life, having a safe and secure life. And I remember that when we used to watch TV and watch other wars going on in other parts of the world, we used to think that, oh, nothing will happen here. And suddenly in 2012, when the protests started, I remember that we woke up at 5 a.m. on the sound of sharp, annoying helicopters bullets. So here we realized that we really need to go somewhere safer for now. And we expected that we're just gonna go to our farm in the north of Syria for like only for 3 days, and then everything will go back to normal. And even my mom, I remember she told me like, don't take too much stuff because we're going back. And when we left, we didn't go back till today, because we first went to our farm, as I said before, and the situation there wasn't so great. Like, imagine living without electricity, without internet, without gas, without any mean of technology. So, like, we used to live in medieval ages. Like, we used to sleep at 6 p.m. and wake up at 5 a.m., gather some vegetables, cook on wood because we didn't have any kind of gas or electricity. Then the situation there politically was intimidating because we went out of the area there was out of the government's control. So many armed factions were fighting there, and from now and then the government would strike our village there. So we needed to find a safer place. So we moved to Damascus, to my mom's relative, and in Damascus, my mom's family were also displaced from their homes. And we all gathered in one house, and we lived together with like extended family, and each family lived in one room, for example. And then later on, we tried to, in 2015, we tried to apply for a visa in the United Arab Emirates because my brothers were there before. Mm-hmm. But the visas for Syrians were actually closed after the war, and UAE wasn't accepting any kind of refugees. So the thing is, but I don't know how, it was actually a miracle that we managed to go there at first as a visiting visa. Then my parents tried to find a job, then they found it eventually, and we moved to UAE. And now here I am. I consider myself so lucky because I know my friends like now are living in camps, for example, and in other areas in the world, and they couldn't be like, they're like stuck in the refugee title.
Yeah. And meanwhile, you're a student and studying journalism and communications, yes. And we're going to talk about that too in a moment. You are each involved in amazing initiatives ranging from providing resources to young refugees, getting accurate information about the current pandemic to refugees, and amplifying refugee voices, as you're doing here today. I see if you serve on the Global Youth Advisory Council for the UN Refugee Agency. In that role, are you involved in trying to protect young refugees from COVID-19? What kind of conversations are activists in the refugee world having about the challenges of this pandemic?
Well, as part of the Global Youth Advisory Council, we somehow connect the international level to the ground where the refugees face the problems. We have seen that there was a gap, and I'm glad that the UNHCR appointed the Global Youth Advisory Council in December 2017 to really get the recommendations from the ground, the people who face these challenges, to bring that in the global level, those recommendations. Currently, we are doing a campaign called For You, where we showcase that refugees are really also part of the solution. We have been hearing something that has been really bothering me also. When we first went to the global level and attending these conferences, the diplomats were saying like the responsibility and burden sharing. I was a burden. I was feeling like, am I a burden on these people? So we showcase that the refugees are part of the solution, and there are so many refugees working in the hospitals. They provide not just the refugees but also host communities with their help. Starting, for example, making soap, really easy thing and really fundamental also. Yeah, so we have been also, for example, as part of Global Youth Advisory Council, we have been also reviewing the policy papers that UNHCR has been producing. We have given our feedback to that policy papers as people who have been affected themselves as refugees. And also something that happened in 2018. During 2018, we were also contributing, and we were really involved in the process of the Global Compact on Refugees.
Yeah.
And we could really bring also the youth perspective in this, which we are really proud of.
Amazing. Hala, I wanted to ask you a question about your work as a budding journalist, but first I understand you have a poem which you'd like to read to us. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's hear it.
So it's called phantosmia, which is a mental disorder where you start like smelling non-existent smells, especially the smell of smoke. So I lost my house. It was engulfed by flames, burning every memory I have. My childhood steps, my small blanket, the intimate fragment was replaced with smoke. A piece of me was burned. I lost her. I can see her now, begging me, please stay, please don't go. I stepped on my heart and walked away, on the river of tears streaming behind. Another piece of me was burned. I lost myself. The warm sun that used to warm my back, cutting me with its blades now, the sparkling stars in its sky. I can barely see them now. They are dead, eaten by darkness. The two eyes that were painted in green are now filled with red, bloody tears. My entirety was burned. I lost myself, the faraway laughter of forgotten friends, sparking my heart with longing, twinkled in the distance. I shake like a shallow shell, with the storming air inside feeding my fire. Burning out, from ashes I came, and to ashes I returned.
Wow, Hal, that was so moving. Thank you very much for sharing it. When did you write that?
Actually, I wrote it in my creative writing class in university because we were asked to talk about some event that entirely changed our life. So I wrote it during this.
Amazing. And so you're clearly a writer, and you're also a budding journalist, and I understand you're working to tell the stories of Syrian refugees, but also fighting misinformation like conspiracy theories about COVID-19. Tell me about your work.
So I started when, like many, misinformation suddenly was created in the Middle East, especially, and conspiracy theories about COVID-19. Like the most recent one was, I find it funny, honestly. It's about the conspiracy theories that Bill Gates is trying to like donate for the vaccination of COVID-19 so that he controls our bodies through a chip like that enters our body from the vaccination. And I found it so weird. And especially like other stuff were about the COVID-19 treatment, like you can, for example, eat onion or garlic and you will be actually treated, or you need to chew some ginger or drink a specific drug or drink water that can actually wash away the virus from your throat. And I knew that all this information was actually not true because I used to be up to date with the World Health Organization website and some other scientific magazines that were posting researches about the topic. So I wanted to just inform people either like formally by like videos that I edited and like publish on my personal blogs or by articles, but also even in chat conversation with other people. Like whenever I find any kind of misinformation or a post, I used to contact this person personally and try to actually raise awareness about like this is wrong and try to give them evidence how is this wrong. So, and I actually, some idea like came to my mind and I'm gonna apply it like now during summer, that I want to start a YouTube channel even and start talking about misinformation and fake news about COVID-19 specifically.
That's amazing. It's so interesting because Nhial, I understand that you've been spending a lot of time getting factual information out about COVID-19 also. What exactly are you doing to get the word out about masks and social distancing and in a sprawling refugee camp of 200,000 people?
Thank you so much. So what happened is that when the COVID-19 pandemic, it started spreading like wildfire across the world, so we realized that many people in the camp didn't have access to the right information because most of the information was being shared through social media. Not every refugee has access to social media. So we start, engaging our communities. And then we came up with a number of posters in 4 different languages that are mostly spoken in the camp. And what we did is that we tried to find innovative ways to get our messages across. So we engage 500 businesses across Kakuma and Calabaye. And then these shops are visited by refugees and the host community. Like you'll find 10 to 50 people visiting these shops a day. So we put our messages in these shops in 10 different languages, 4 different languages. So this helps us to reach like more people on a daily basis. And then we're also able to engage community leaders to help us get our messages to the elderly and vulnerable people in the communities who are not able to visit public areas where we have put our messages. And now we are using an SMS system to get our messages across to more people and also track misinformation and help verify rumors about COVID-19 that are spreading a lot in the camp.
Wow, amazing. So you basically have this message translated into all of the different languages that are spoken inside the camp?
Yes.
What countries are people from in the camp?
So in Kakuma, we have more than 10 different nationalities. The camp is very diverse, but majority of refugees come from South Sudan, Somalia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Oh, fascinating. As we near the end of this segment, I was just curious how you're all getting by personally during this pandemic, and if the isolation has affected you, or if you've been able to find community during this time. Hala, what about you?
Honestly, during how COVID-19 affected me, it's just like how it affected everyone else. Because, for example, now I can't get internship programs to practice. Like journalism on ground. And for example, even the financial situation, like my brother lost his job, and even my parents now are not teaching anymore because they used to be tutors, but now they can't because some families are just so careful about the situation right now. And the thing is, we were kind of financially in a tight situation. And this is not only like about me or as a refugee, because I know like many people have the same issue right now. And yeah.
Are you who are you living with? Are you on your own there, or is your family staying with you?
No, my family is actually staying with me. And yeah, for now, because honestly, there's like this negative effect of the quarantine that the family members right now are not like in so perfect psychological situation.
Sure.
So it's actually so like I feel sometimes stressed and pressured, especially like we live only in 2 rooms. And so like I'm always in direct contact with everyone, and not everyone is so patient right now about the situation.
Wow. Asif, how about you? How are you? I'm sorry, Asif, how are you holding up during this pandemic?
Well, thank God in Austria things are getting a bit normalized, and so I could work from home. But as you know, most of the refugees, they are separated from their parents, from their families, relatives. So ironically, this pandemic brought me personally more closer to them, and had more time to connect to them, also to talk to them. But this brings also more topics to think about. How are they doing now, and also the challenges that they have. For example, my father and my grandparents are in Pakistan, and the pandemic is really, really bad currently in Pakistan and Afghanistan. And you try to give them some advices which worked better here in European countries, and the situation is worse there now.
Asif, do you hope to bring your family to Vienna? Is that even a possibility?
I'm afraid there's no possibility. No, I wish to, but there's no possibility. Therefore, like I said, most of the refugees, they've been separated. Like lots of young refugees, they were separated from their parents, and families are taken apart during this, I would say, journey.
Yeah, family separation defines the refugee experience. That is, for every individual who's affected on either side of whatever ocean, right? Yeah. Nhial, how about you? How has life changed for you during this pandemic?
So these are, very crazy times for all of us. I don't think it is only about refugees, but all of us. And that is why I try, to put it across that this is not about refugees, but it is about all of us, because we are not safe until we are all safe. So these are crazy time. So now I like learning centers are closed. I'm studying online and I don't have internet at home. So I find it at catching up with my lessons. But what I'm trying to stay active is that I do keep a well-being plan. So I keep a routine, like I wake up and go to bed at the same time. I exercise, I do activities that, bring me joy. I do hobbies. And then I try to stay in touch with friends. So I talk to friends on a daily basis. I do video chats, and then this helps me. I meditate, so this helps me to stay active and also in good mental health.
Nhial, are you optimistic about your future?
Yes, I'm very optimistic. I have so many dreams that I look up to, and I'll never stop looking up.
What about you, Hala? Are you optimistic about your own future?
Honestly, I'm more of a pessimistic person, not about my future, because I really care about others, and I really care about, for example, my relatives in Syria and what's going on right now there. And there are many horrible things that's going on there. Like even in the safe areas now, the financial situation of them is really bad. And I feel like it's gonna get even worse and worse. And I can't find like a very optimistic image of what will happen in the future. And I know that we will be actually faced by many challenges in the future, but the positive side of me is that, and optimistic side is that I really want to try my best, and I'm still trying my best in order to do something about it. Like no matter what it is, like even like for me entering journalism, for example, it was for the reason that I wanted to help others, and I wanted to convey the voices of the people that were in Syria and weren't given much attention, or their voices weren't out there because of the media biasness. So that's what initially even invoked the idea of me fighting fake news and entering journalism, although that I could enter any other major. But yeah, so I'm really optimistic for a future where I can actually give the best I can give in it.
And I'm optimistic for your future. And you, Asif, are you optimistic for your future and for your family's future?
Oh, same here. I'm also optimistic. And as Hala said, I personally also care about the future of others. And the thing is, I always think there is at least one other person who is in a worse situation than I am, and I really hope that to be able to help these people also, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, and to bring also those voices in a place where we could shape also policies.
This was such an enriching conversation. Asif, Hala, Nhial, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope to meet you in real life one day.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
In case you're just now joining us, this is Micropolis World Refugee Day, and I'm Matt Katz. In true Micropolis fashion, we couldn't leave you without a performance, and so it is my great pleasure to introduce Asalarah and the Nubatones, who will treat us to a few songs. We'll then chat with lead singer Asalarah about the program and about her work.
Hello, everybody. My name is Asalarah, and this is Brandon Terzic. We are two members of Asalarah and the Nubatones. I'm so excited to be here with you guys today celebrating World Refugee Day. I can't wait until we're all here together to celebrate a world where there is no need for a Refugee Day. Because I've said this before, and I say this always, there is no such thing as a refugee. There's just people, and there's people in transit on their way to finding a home. And you stop being a refugee the moment you have a home. So to me, the status of a refugee is the direct result of the failure of all the states that are creating inhumane living situations for all of us. We all have the right to refuge. We all have the right to a home. We all have the right to thrive. And we all have the right to live stigma-free of that. There is no such thing as you deserve it or you were poor, so you need to end there. Today, I call for all of us coming together. This last song that we did was called Ayyan Taban. I learned it at a refugee camp called Yusuf Batil from 3 little girls who wrote it. And I like to sing this song often as dedication to them, as a dedication to all the people that helped me find my way home and helped me feel at home. Thank you so much to all my people out at Yusuf Batil. If you want to find out more about them, please watch the documentary Beats of the Antonov. And in the meantime, here's the most important lesson that I took away with me from that documentary and that project was the idea that love is infinite and that love can happen anywhere and under the most dire of conditions. This song is gonna come out on our next album, hopefully. It's called Ya Maryud. And yeah, I hope you like it. We're gonna let Brandon do a little taqsim in the beginning of it. Take us away, Brandon. شوفوني في حبك أخوض أمواج البحر بدون قيود العيب يا دايم يا مريود شوفوني في حبك أخوض أمواج البحر بدون الدنيا في حضنك غرام يدوم وكل سر للقمر مفتون وكل سر للقمر مفتون تردد أغاني الشجن والشوق تردد أغاني الشجن والشوق نغم في نغم لف الدنيا طيور نغم في نغم لف الدنيا طيور نغم في نغم لف الدنيا Today we celebrate Juneteenth, we celebrate refugees worldwide, and we celebrate, hopefully, the beginning of the dismantling of white supremacy. Here's to freedom everywhere. Injustice somewhere is injustice everywhere. Black Lives Matter. On this day, here's to the collective Black diaspora rising and all the other people. يا المؤمن بالسعادة وشل أماني كالدراع يا المناضل للبراءة وما بتساوم مع الظلم عارف وصولك وده سلاحك التقدم وجناحك واجه عيوبك بصراحة بالحنان تغيير يتم يا المؤمن بالسعادة وشل أماني كالدراع يا المناضل للبراءة وما بتساوم مع الظلم عارف وصولك وده سلاحك التقدم وجناحك واجه عيوبك بصراحة بالحنان تغيير يتم حبيبي 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 خيرك فايض عالمرافقك بتضوي درب المستقل يا المؤمن بالسعادة شل أماني كالدراع عارف وصولك وده سلاحك التقدم وجناحك واجه عيوبك بصراحة بالحنان تغيير يتم خيرك فايض عالمرافقك بتضوي درب المستقل خيرك فايض عالمرافقك بتضوي درب المستقل الوصية في تراثك الجذور سر النمو زي النخيل دعب السحابة ايدك طايلة للشمس حبيبي 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 Habibi, Habibi. Da 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 da. Da da tiara. Da da tiara. Da da tiara. Brandon Terzik. My name is Asalarah. We are two members of Asalarah and the Nubatones. Shout out to the rest of the band. We will all be together again when this pandemic is over.
Asalarah, hello. Thank you so much for treating us to that wonderful performance. We so appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me, Matt.
Oh, of course. Wherever you are right now, the sound was wonderful. Can you tell everyone where in the world you are at the moment?
I am currently in my living room in Brooklyn, New York. Welcome to the stay-at-home sessions.
All right, nice. And how are you holding up through this quarantine over in Brooklyn?
I'm doing good. I'm really blessed. I'm very lucky. I have housing. I have food. I have friends who are not too far. I don't see them that much, but I see them on Zoom.
Nice. Right. Very good. And you mentioned something in your performance that caught my ear. I'm sure it caught many ears about the word refugee. As a child, you and your family had fled both Sudan and then later Yemen. Can you expand on your thoughts on this word refugee?
I think people use refugee as a permanent status. They use this word as if it is actually a defining characteristic of a person. When in fact, being a refugee is a really temporary space of a journey as a migrant and as an immigrant, and as a global normal. Because the oldest part of human history is travel and movement. Refuge is our oldest solution to. This is our oldest anti-poverty solutions. I think we started to think of the idea of movement as a modern concept when it's really much more ancient than that. And for me, also the word refugee, it's not a permanent status. It's not a stigma. It's not something that defines all that you can be or all that you ever were. Regular people, anybody can seek refuge. And so I really like to emphasize that because I don't like the way I see the word being used in this, it has this permanency to it. And with the permanency comes a stigma, and because it comes expectations on a locked box of what a person can be. And it's not true.
You chose 3 songs on this World Refugee Day to share with us. Why did you choose these tunes?
Because for me, these songs represent so much about hope, about love, about what I consider the pillars of what it means to thrive as a person, which is to seek the kind of infinite love where you don't need to be special to be loved, where you need nothing but hope, really, to become your true fullest self. And for me, learning, like the first song I did, Ayan Taban, I learned it from Muna and her friends who wrote it when they were like 15, 13, and 11 in a refugee camp. And to me, I learned so much from learning that song because I learned so much about the true simplicity of being human and what it is you need to actually thrive as a person. And how much music plays a role in that and how we define who we are. It's like our sonic historian. So I was really happy to choose that song and to share it as an ode to all my family out in all the refugee camps everywhere, and as an ode to all my people worldwide. I hope we all find home, and home is a state of mind. So I hope we get there together.
those girls that you learned the song from, what camp were they in? What were the circumstances behind you encountering them?
It was a refugee camp called Yusuf Battle Camp in Maban, which was in an area between North Sudan and South Sudan, sort of in like a no man's land region. And they were the latest victims of the old regime in Sudan that currently we have a transitional government from. There was a revolution to overthrow it last year, which we're still not deciding how that goes. Anyways, but it was a refugee camp there, hosting a large group of people from the Nuba Mountains, from the Blue Nile. And the camp was about 80,000 people deep when I was there. I was working on a documentary project called Beats of the Antonov about war, music, and identity in Sudan. I highly recommend everyone to watch it.
And these girls had written this song in the camp, or they had learned it from others?
They wrote the song. They wrote many, many, many songs. If you watch the documentary, you'll see a lot of the music that they made. The music that I encountered in the camp was some of the most original music I'd ever heard. And for me, it also it brought back concepts about ownership over culture and over sound, and how when we systemize music in a certain way and remove it from the common grasp, what does that do to music? Where do we create systemic hierarchy in a music industry that then disregards people? The same way we create hierarchies and systemic prejudice in so many different ways of creating laws that basically dehumanize us. So for me, having met people who really take agency over the sound and the music that they're making, and the fact that this is a hobby and a pastime, and the fact that the choice of songs was Aghani al-Banat, or girls' music, a women's music genre, because women have ownership of the sound, of the lyrics, of the performance, and all of a sudden my entire world changed about what I even thought of like we were raised in this idea that there is a lack of, but there's a lack of documentation of, like I met a world of composers and creators and builders and architects, and there's just not documented.
Right. These things are happening. These ideas are being manifested. Things are being created, but we need somebody like yourself to bear witness to it, to hear it, and to bring it to us.
Yeah, and I think for me, it also, like, not just me to bear witness. I think we should all just bear witness to the idea that history is not absolute. The way we see it, the way we read it, and so when you meet someone that you think of as a refugee, their story is not singular and it is not absolute. There's so many factors to it, because there's so many factors to being a human.
When people are find themselves in refugee camps, when they're in a state of movement, when migrants are going from place to place, do you find that they rely on music to a great extent to take them to a different place, to just connect with their roots and where they came from?
I think humanity in general relies on music to document its story, because we're in transit from birth to death. So we're constantly in transit. And I don't think there's a single real human, I don't know any humans that don't have a soundtrack that either they make or they adopt, and they relate to. And so to me, what I saw in the camps wasn't anything different than what I expect humanity to behave at. It was just more highlighted because so much of the BS around our concepts of society that are so artificial and based on capitalist consumption end up kind of being in trappings and things in the way of how what we really fundamentally need as humans.
Mm-hmm. Which is connection and with other people,
which is to be remembered. And we make sounds to remember ourselves and to remind ourselves of our story and to share that with other people. It's an old way it's like talking.
Yeah.
It's our history.
How are you finding community right now? Are there other Sudanese friends who are in your area? Are you communicating via Zoom? Are you making music with other people right now? How are you finding community?
I am making music by sending ideas with friends also all across the world. I have friends and family globally. I've been basically after being a migrant and a refugee, I became basically a professional traveler and a nomad, and then realized that my entire people really have been nomadic in one way or another in my personal family. So my tribe has always been global. And so having this pandemic just means I can't get on planes and go visit people, but I've always had this video relationship, ways of communicating beyond just the immediate like face-to-faces. But New York is also my home. And so I've been going out to the protests every day. And that has been really tremendous in establishing a sense of community with New York again. And I think a lot of us are feeling it. This is a really exciting time of change. I feel like something started in the beginning of 2019 and it's still going. It's still very much going.
The protests have been a positive experience for you? They've made you optimistic in some way?
They have, yeah. They've been very positive for me. I think change can have a lot of pain in it, and change can have a lot of ugliness in it. But nobody's ever gotten the rights that they want just by somebody else handing it to them. You got to demand what you need, and you got to ask for it. And you got to remember that people are the ones who shape the system. And I believe in people. I've always believed in people beyond anything.
Asalarah, thank you so much for sharing your beautiful talents with us on this important day and for bringing us into your living room in Brooklyn. We so appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you for coming into my living room.
It's a pleasure.
Happy Juneteenth and happy World Refugee Day.
That's right.
All find home together.
Beautiful. Amen.
Amen. See you.
That was my interview with Asalarah. Thank you all for tuning in. I want to extend my thanks to our panelists, the UNHCR Director in New York, Ruvendrini Menikdiwela, refugee activists Hala Haj Taleb, Asif Saftari, Nhial Deng, as well as Asalarah and the Nubatones. As Asalarah said, it is Juneteenth, and we're celebrating later this evening with a program featuring important and prominent Black voices that have graced our stage at the Green Space, sharing 61 minutes and 9 seconds of insights, stirring performances, and real conversation that is so urgent in these times. It'll be airing here on our website, on YouTube, and on Facebook at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Some featured guests include Sonia Sanchez, Nicole Hannah-Jones, Savion Glover, Wynton Marsalis, and Cornell West. We hope to see you there. That's all for me. I just want to thank the Green Space team for putting together this program, Cam Tompkins, Satya Zora, and those reporting from the venue and keeping this thing online, Jennifer Sendro, Ricardo Fernandez, and David McLean. It's been a pleasure hosting and reading all your comments. You can follow me at Matt Katz00 on Twitter, MattKatz00, and stay up to date with my reporting on refugee and immigrant issues for WNYC. Thank you so much. Be safe. Take care.